In September 2000, the United Nations committed world leaders to a declaration known as the Millennium Development Goals, now with measurable targets and, of course, clear deadlines for improving the world's poorest people by 2015. Today, however, that has clearly been superseded by a post-development agenda known as the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Now, this new set of goals were adopted at the 70th session of the UN Summit in New York in 2015. And as part of efforts to consolidate and, of course, address the unfinished business of the Millennium Development Goals. The SDGs target 17 areas that build on past achievements. They're broader, deeper, and, of course, far more ambitious in scope when compared with the 8 MDGs. Now, the goals and targets will stimulate action from UN member countries over the next 15 years in what is now known as 2030 Agenda. Hello there and welcome. This is Agenda 2030, a program designed to capture and critically examine Nigeria's efforts towards the attainment of the SDGs. I'm Erusa Igumbo. Now, the core objectives of the 17 SDGs are to end poverty and hunger, protect the planet from degradation, foster peace, realize human rights, while trying to balance the three dimensions of development, that is, economic, social, and environmental. And as part of UN member states that adopted a post-2015 development agenda, Nigeria is not left out of this opportunity to be part of and, of course, implement this plan of action. On today's program, we'll bring you an overview of the Sustainable Development Goals, a quick review of what Nigeria has done since it was adopted, and we'll also bring you reports from the last national consultation on the voluntary report. The program continues in just a moment. Stay with us. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the program Agenda 2030. It's now time to bring you some of the latest news and reports emanating from the Sustainable Development Goals program. In a bid to enhance the existing partnership with the development partners in support of the SDGs implementation in Nigeria, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has inaugurated the SDGs Donors Partnership Forum. The forum is aimed at revitalizing and strengthening capacity of existing institutions, as well as mobilizing resources, among other objectives. At the event, Vice President Osinbajo noted that the thrust and optimism of the forum was for governments and people of Nigeria to defeat extreme poverty.
Social investments is a key pillar of our economic recovery and growth plan. There is no way of fighting poverty and its many causes and implications without social safety nets in one form or the other. It explains why we believe that eradicating corruption is central to eradicating extreme poverty. We cannot allow theft of public resources and speak of sustainable development.
The work of the Donor Partnership Forum on Sustainable Development being inaugurated today will make this effort to scale. This will enhance efficiency of resources, curb project duplication, and foster aid effectiveness. This forum will encourage policy coherence with attendant alignment of donors' intervention with government medium and long-term development plan.
The 2030 Agenda commits all countries and stakeholders to work together to promote sustained and inclusive economic growth, social development, environmental protection, rule of law and justice, while leaving no one behind. The scale and ambition of this new universal agenda calls for an integrated approach to sustainable development and collective action at all levels.
Vice President Osinbajo noted that there was a tendency for huge global programs such as the SDGs to become mere aspiration or academic. He, however, said that the reality for countries such as Nigeria simply would not permit such skepticism. And barely 16 months into the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, stakeholders in Nigeria have converged on Abuja to critically evaluate the implementation efforts of the global agenda. The meeting is with a view to produce an outcome document on the progress with the implementation of the SDGs in the country.
And the essence of this consultation conference is to bring all but every all the parties on board, all the stakeholders, and in the implementation of sustainable development goals, beneficiary, the government, private sector, non-governmental organizations, donor agencies, and other partners in different MDAs, both at the national and sub-national levels. We are here to give account of what we have seen being done by individual, by organization, by private sector, by government on sustainable development. Nigeria has agreed to mainstream SDG into national development, and that's exactly what we are doing. The baseline study has been conducted, the mapping is being done, and so we are here to put heads together to come up with a report that will be presented in July at ECOSOC in New York. God willing, in July, I think between the 9th of July to 17th of July 2017.
And in more news, the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals has commenced a digital skills training for the empowerment of 125,000 youths across the Federation. The training is holding in all senatorial districts in collaboration with Google through its vendor, Mind the Gap. The aim of the program is to leverage on technology in order to sustain innovation as well as deploy the knowledge to improve themselves and the economy of the country.
Today, technology has opened mind-boggling opportunities in commerce, in science, and medicine, and practically all aspects of human endeavor. Today, technology has created space for millions of new business opportunities just by being able to virtually connect millions of people. The internet has changed the business landscape and empowered anyone with great ideas and any smart handheld device. For me, the most fascinating new realities are the so-called disruptive technologies, innovations which disrupt or upset existing markets, displacing established market leaders by creating new markets of their own. Of these technologies, the most interesting are those that are called the network orchestrators. These companies that just simply take advantage of the business environments that already exist. They have no inventories of their own, no assets of their own. All they do is create a new layer of business through technology.
In the last decades, ICT has undergone rapid development and has been introduced into all segments of the society. It has brought new opportunities for businesses and individuals, decreasing the cost of productivity and enhancing organizational effectiveness. When used appropriately, ICT is known to help expand access to sustainable development, enhancing self-reliance and increasing the likelihood of achieving SDG in the process. In order to attain sustainable development in Nigeria and other part of the world, youth empowerment must remain the focus of our long and medium-term development strategy. SDG Goal 8 briefly put it in the perspective. It calls on countries to promote full, productive employment and decent work for all. It requires that we target investment in skill development of the youth population in order to enhance their productivities in the labor market. This has become imperative as the youth population expands in Nigeria. If poorly managed, it could worsen the inequality gap, put incredible strain on resources and infrastructure, and could lead to increased level of social turbulence. With the flag off of digital training today, the federal government is demonstrating its commitment to SDG Goal 1, Goal 4, Goal 8, and Goal 17. We take cognizance that the Nigerian youth constitutes a significant proportion of the entire workforce, and we are also conscious that the importance of digital skill and education for our youth cannot be overemphasized.
It has as its theme diversifying the Nigerian economy, enabling youths through digital skills training. Meanwhile, as part of efforts to prevent the drawbacks found with the implementation of the Millennium Development Goals, the Nigerian government has mobilized 400 core members across the country to champion the implementation of the SDGs 2030 in the country. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, Princess Adejoke Orelokwe Adefulure, said this at the launch of the National Youth Service Corps and SDG Champions in Kefi, Nasarawa State. She said one of the major drawbacks was the inability of communities to take ownership of the projects cited in their localities. The 400 corps members are expected to assist in advocacy of the SDGs across the 36 states and the 776 local government areas.
This group of corps members will be acting as a mouthpiece for the Office of Senior Special Assistant to the President on behalf of Mr. President on sustainable development, on the advocacy and sensitization of sustainable development activities at the 36 states and 774 local governments of Nigeria. It is instructive to note that the National Youth Service Corps, with a nationwide spread, played a major role in galvanizing Nigeria to participate in the Millennium Development Goals and was the forefront for the collation of data which resulted in the new global agenda for development. The Sustainable Development Goals. It is therefore only logical for the Office of National Youth Service Corps to evolve its partnership using corps members to drive the Sustainable Development Goals advocacy, since the development goals seeks to complete the unfinished business of MDG.
Well, that's the news. The program Agenda 2030 continues in just a moment. To stay. Recently, the federal government and other key players converged on Abuja to brainstorm on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the event convened by the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs examined the implementation efforts in order to produce a document that would be presented at the high-level political forum of the UN Economic and Social Council in July. Here's an excerpt of the presentation made by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs.
Distinguished invited guests, members of the press, I am delighted to welcome you all to this national consultation to discuss Nigeria Voluntary Report on the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria, known as Agenda 2030. It is heartwarming to see such a distinguished and diverse audience gathered here for this event. This demonstrates that we comprehend the opportunity that this event provides to celebrate the attainment of Sustainable Development Goals in our dear country, Nigeria. Peer review mechanisms are important to help focus stakeholders' attention on global commitments and indispensable for the effective functioning of state parties within the international multilateral systems. The action peer review mechanism, for instance, helps members of the Action Union to assess the level of achievement of commonly agreed objectives in the economic, social, and cultural, as well as human rights spheres in Africa. Likewise, at the Human Rights Council in Geneva, member states track performance on agreed human rights goals and norms by the way of universal peer review mechanism are discussed. The review of the implementation of the SDGs at the high-level political forum under the auspices of Economic and Social Council, known as ECOSOC, instituted by the United Nations, is no less significant. Indeed, it is of considerable importance in establishing the context within which states are judged to have achieved a measurable of success in meeting their voluntary agreed commitments to their own people. This is especially so since the reporting process established by the United Nations as a follow-up mechanism for the Sustainable Development Goals is voluntary and member state-led.
Sorry.
The 2017 National Voluntary Report Reviews, therefore, aim to accelerate the implementation of 2030 Agenda by galvanizing partnerships and commitment from various stakeholders to collectively speed up progress on sustainable development goals. In particular, this year's review is focused on the policy and enabling environment needed for sustainable development goal integration, mainstreaming, and overall implementation across the member states. As such, this assessment progress will use this significant as known lens through which Nigeria progress on SDG is evaluated. Significantly, the National Voluntary Report is expected to highlight the level of SDG ownership at the national and sub-national levels, in addition to assessing the extent of integration of agenda into our national development frameworks. Apart from conducting a detailed study of the institutional agreement being used to deploy the SDG, as well as a rigorous thematic analysis around the selected goals, the report is also expected to reveal the degree to which the economic, social, and environmental dimension of development has been integrated. All of you in this room represent diverse stakeholders group across the 36 states of the Federation and ST. Also, we have colleagues at the National Consultation who are representative from all other SDG relevant sectors. I am certain that this gathering is a reservoir of cumulative knowledge and experience of development policies and practices implemented both at the national and sub-national levels. To ensure this progress is successful, we need you to speak to one another and help one another understand the challenge you face, such that those challenges can be overcome. This will provide a rich context from which this national report will be formed. The national report will not only provide the basis for Nigeria representation in New York in July 2017, but will offer actionable lessons that can be adopted by relevant stakeholders. This is a crucial step in accelerating national development as we collectively provide solutions to the impediment that hampers progress. I therefore, ladies and gentlemen, implore you to bring your contributions to this exercise, as the outcome can do a great deal to inform policy, as well as make efforts to scale up implementation of SDG and improve the lives of our people. I wish you a very fruitful deliberation. Thank you for being here on behalf of the President, Commander-in-Chief, Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari.
All that was the presentation of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, Princess Adejoke Orelokpe Adefulure, at the last national consultation on the 2017 National Voluntary Report on SDGs, recently held here in Abuja. There she was giving some of the major highlights of the SDGs, including the interventions, the challenges, and of course, on all global best practices. Well, away from that now, it's time for our quiz show. And let's remind you that, of course, we threw out a question last week asking for the full meaning of SDGs.
SDG is a sustainable development goal.
The full meaning of the, I think, is sustainable development goals.
Okay, sir.
Yes, that means to me it means sustainable development goals.
Well, if I should know, I think since we're looking at development goals, then it's still SDG. Probably it should be something like sustainable development goals. And as a government, I believe they're trying to, it's just a change of, it's a packaging thing, changing from MDG to SDGs. I think that's it.
All for the benefit of those of you who had no idea of what it was, it simply means Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, we shortlisted 3 people who are right here with me in the studio. And of course, we'll be taking them through a round of questions just to get our final winner. We have Justina, we have Grace, and we have Donald in the studio. Welcome to Agenda 2030 studio.
Thank you
very much.
Okay, now we have a list of questions for you from 1 to 6. Starting from my far end, let's start with you, Justina. Pick a question.
Question number 6.
Question number 6, that would be, what is the name of the Senior Special Assistant to the President in SDGs?
Okay, Mrs. Aderoleke.
Wrong answer. Bonus question to any of you.
Mrs. Adejoke Olorolokpe.
It's Princess Adejoke.
Yeah. Princess Adefore. Adejoke Olorolokpe Adefore.
Grace.
Princess Adejoke. I don't remember her last name. I can't pronounce her last name.
Well, I'm sorry. I can't give that to any of you. Well, okay, it's your time now, Grace. What's your question?
Question number 4.
Okay, number 4. What is the lifespan of the SDGs?
15 years.
Correct answer. Donald, your question. Pick a number. Number 3. How many goals are there in the SDGs?
17 goals.
Correct answer. So you have 2 points as well. Okay, your question, Justina.
Number 5.
Question number 5 is, when did the SDGs implementation come into force?
Okay, January 2016.
Correct answer. So you all have 2 points apiece, but of course you are already short because it's your second question. Grace, your second question.
2.
Question number 2. How many targets are there in the SDGs?
No idea.
Donald, bonus question to you.
No idea.
Okay. So Donald, Justina,
17.
wrong answer. Donald, your time for your question now. Pick a question.
Number 1.
Question number 1. That is, when did the SDGs implementation, or rather, when was the SDGs adopted?
September 2015.
Right answer. So clearly we have a winner with, Donald with 4 points, Grace with 2 points, and of course Justina with 2 points. So clearly Donald wins our quiz show for today. Congratulations, Donald.
Thank you very much.
And of course we have our SDG ambassador here who will be presenting our gifts today to our winner, Donald. Thanks for coming.
Congratulations, Donald.
Thank you.
And this is from the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations once again. And thank you so much, very much for coming on the program, Justina and Grace. Well, there you have it. That's the size of our program this week. Thank you so very much for watching. But just before we go, here's a question for the week. And of course, you can send your answers to the number scrolling on your screen. Thank you so very much for being part of this week's edition. We'll see you again next week. I'm Egusa Igumbo. Bye for now.